bickering cousins, a Gothic palace ringed by a moat, and a prince balancing divorce-era ghosts against 3 growing pillow fight addicts step inside the whispers that could explode Windsor's fragile peace. The cottage walls creak at dawn, and the future King of Great Britain winces because Louis's Nerf dart has spiked the hallway picture frame again. 4 bedrooms, 5 royals, 0 escape routes. Adelaide Cottage is inching toward critical mass. At breakfast, Charlotte twirls her tennis racket in a kitchen meant for Regency footmen, not elastic power serves. George, newly 12 and newly inducted into the heavyweight syllabus of constitutional law, tries revising beside the pantry because his sister's racket whistles too close to his ear. William's phone pings an alert from the Panama desk, Catherine's inbox multiplies earthshot invitations, and somewhere in the cramped laundry room a spaniel howls. That's the morning soundtrack inside the so-called relaxed Windsor haven, a soundtrack the press never hears but the walls keep replaying. Outside those honeystone walls, rumours swirl faster than midsummer midges. The Waleses are scanning the estate map again, hunting square footage, hunting breathing room, hunting a future-proof nursery for a boy who will one day shoulder the orb. 2 estates loom in the gossip fog, each carrying its own minefield of family baggage. Royal Lodge, 30 rooms, velvet drapes, currently barricaded by Prince Andrew's refusal to downsize. Fort Belvedere, an 8-bedroom Gothic revival perched like a fairytale fortress over Windsor Great Park, eternally shadowed by Edward VIII's abdication signature. One is blocked by bad blood, the other by bad omens. And yet both glow seductive on Catherine's mood board, space for Lego, staff, and adolescent boundaries, lawns broad enough to hide a private teenage football pitch, a moat deep enough to drown paparazzi lenses. Veteran palace watcher Jenny Bond tried to douse the chatter. Just a rumor, she told the Mirror. The Waleses, she insists, idolize normality and will cling to cozy simplicity as long as childhood lasts. But even her calming tone admits a crack. 4 bedrooms don't stretch far when 3 children morph from sandbox toddlers into sleepover strategists who prefer separate dens. Privacy once secured by rose trellises now feels brittle against TikTok drones buzzing overhead. Inside Kensington's comms hub, aides whisper that normal must flex if the throne inches closer by the month and if George's Secret Service assessments demand layered perimeters no cottage can deliver. Complicating the calculus is Royal Lodge, Andrew's red brick dominion, echoing with the rustle of disputed leases and the metallic clang of public opinion. Charles would love to reboot the property, swap Andrew's 30-room sprawl for Harry's vacated Frogmore cottage, and pass the lodge to William's heir team at a stroke. But Andrew digs in deeper than ancient Hugh roots, citing contracts, sentimental horse paddock rights, and a lifetime's habit of ignoring polite hints. Each unsent eviction letter fattens the tension until the option feels radioactive. Catherine, ever the diplomat, murmurs that evicting an uncle, however tarnished, would pitchfork the tabloids into nuclear frenzy. William agrees, better to sidestep the mine than detonate it. Thus the spotlight slides to Fort Belvedere, a mansion the size of a mid-sized boarding school, ringed by a slender moat and a century's worth of cautionary tales. Private tenants restored its bones in creamy elegance, laid a tennis court Charlotte could own by Easter, kept the pool heated year-round. There are 3 cottages on site perfect for protection officers, and a walled rose garden already dreaming of Catherine's charity teas. On paper, it is paradise adjacent. But open the heavy oak door to the library and you meet the ghost of 1936, the pen scratch that toppled a king. Some courtiers call the property cursed, others call it redemptive. Imagine the abdication house reborn as the nursery of continuity. William, student of symbolism, tastes both possibilities on his tongue. The press frames the narrative as parental pragmatism, the children's needs rule the roost. Yet beneath the bedtime story veneer rages a strategy duel. How do heirs claim the space they require without triggering the cost-sensitive rage of a nation already side-eyeing royal renovations? And how do they maneuver around an uncle entrenched in Royal Lodge without opening a second front of family warfare? Bond's soundbite about kids first falls politely short of the full chessboard. She says William and Catherine crave normalcy, which is true until normalcy collides with their growing armory of duties. Louis has discovered the echo chamber of why questions. Charlotte's backhand now cracks like pistol shots. George is weeks from pulling on first-term Eton tales. Throw in William's Regency-level workload while Charles undergoes chemo and you see why normal might soon include a private study per child, a media nerve center, a security bunk, and a stretch of grass far from guided tour binoculars. Still, Belvedere is no ordinary upsizing, it's a psychological hazard. Moving into the abdication mansion while the king campaigns for slimmed-down costs looks tone-deaf at best, rebellious at worst. Cynics whisper that William wants status, sympathizers insist he wants sanctuary. Catherine confides to a friend that all she yearns for is a house where homework isn't interrupted by security sweeps and where birthday sleepovers don't require diplomatic choreography. And so the debate ricochets behind cedar doors. Charles' camp warns of optics, Andrew's camp hisses about squatter rights, William's camp drafts floor plans, annotated George study Charlotte studio Louis sprint lane. Even Meghan's name flutters across the margins, invoked by headline writers sniffing the phrase human shield. In 2018 William supposedly buffered Kate from Meghan's icy corridor glance, now he must shield his own family from property wars that threaten to reroute history. Jenny Bond herself admits Belvedere's lure, acres of garden, a lake gleaming like polished obsidian, stables for long weekend hacks. She pictures Charlotte's forehand carving through summer haze on that private court while Catherine applauds courtside, a tableau of sporty mother-daughter harmony perfect for Instagram diplomacy. She knows William still tastes childhood's smell of damp tack at Highgrove and imagines giving Louis that same memory minus the camera flashes. Some insiders suggest a halfway solution: take over Belvedere but lease its guest cottages to a charity, soften the extravagance optics with philanthropic gloss. Others propose a modern prefab wing tacked discreetly onto Adelaide's rear garden, a Lego block compromise that would still leave George revising Latin within earshot of Louis' super soaker. None convince Catherine, who has already pictured the sunrise over Belvedere's moat and the hush of larch trees beyond the swimming pool steam. Meanwhile, Royal Lodge remains the elephant in the Green Park. Andrew refuses to budge, the monarch refuses to strong-arm his disgraced sibling in public, William refuses to stage a takeover that would stain his peacemaker brand, Catherine refuses to raise children inside media trench warfare. Result: stalemate in red brick splendor. Fort Belvedere thus beckons like an inspired alternative, Bond's own phrase. Less provocative than prying Royal Lodge from Andrew's clutches, less cramped than Adelaide Cottage, steeped in history yet renovated to billionaire gloss by the late Galen Weston, whom the royals trusted enough to spend quiet weekends amid Canadian hospitality and bottomless champagne flutes. The Westons installed modern heating, subterranean security, and discreet polo paddocks. All William must do is move in, plus swallow the image cost and pray Britain forgives £1,000,000 refurbishments at a time of supermarket sting. For now, the Waleses smile for cameras on the cottage drive, answer reporters' softballs with gracious brevity, and leave the relocation question unanswered. But staff note Catherine has asked for Belvedere's floor plan crop marks, and William's bodyguards have inspected the perimeter's drone defense grid. Summer might pass without removal vans, yet the blueprint rolls remain beneath a Kensington desk blotter, waiting. If the move happens, it will be pitched publicly as a kid-centric step, more room for grandparents, visiting cousins, and, yes, those teenage sleepovers Jenny Bond flagged. Behind closed doors, however, the family knows Fort Belvedere would double as a shadow court, an embryonic operations hub for a reign that may arrive suddenly if Charles falters. The tennis court becomes a photo op for future Commonwealth youth programs, the lake becomes backdrop to earthshot climate pledges, the abdication library becomes a war room humming with speechwriters instead of Edward's lovesick sighs. But one wrong headline can turn a legacy play into a PR fiasco. Palace kids upgrade to 8-bed castle while Britain tighten belts, not the line William wants trending. He wagers that the public, like Bond, will forgive grandeur if the motive is children's normalcy. It is a high-stakes gamble. The monarchy's survival often hangs on such infinitesimal shifts of perception. Thus the Wales household hovers in limbo, balancing Nerf darts against national expectation. Adelaide's corridors keep narrowing, George's textbooks keep multiplying, Charlotte's racket keeps clipping picture frames, and Louis keeps plotting indoor obstacle courses. One morning William will wake before dawn, skim the latest mortgage rate outrage in the Times, glance at Catherine still asleep, and decide whether the family's next heartbeat echoes inside Belvedere's soaring stairwell or remains boxed inside cottage coziness. Until then, the whispers swirl: bad blood, good intentions, castles, cottages, and 3 unstoppable children. And somewhere in Windsor Great Park, a moat gleams beneath summer moonlight, waiting to know whether it will cradle a new chapter or remain a dormant footnote to a king who chose love over crown.